Testing, 1, 2. Okay,
just quick. Yeah, sorry, I do apologise for that. I mean, there's so many people in this particular live. At the end of the day, I've managed to fuck up the tech again. I mean, it's fitting, really. We have come to the end of the third and final day of evidence of the undercover police officer Robert Hastings, who, using the cover name Rob Harrison, infiltrated No Borders Network, the International Solidarity Movement, State of Emergency Collective, Ramparts, Social Centre, Disarm Dicey, other groups. He also deceived a woman we're calling Maya into a deceitful sexual relationship, which was basically abuse, that continued many years after the end of his deployment, including after the inquiry was called. We have just had the Rule 10 questions, which are the further questions for the witness, which have come from other core participants. There was a lot of frustration at the very end that one of the questions that he was being asked was not asked in a full way. That's because the intervention of his own lawyers that prevented the full details from being made. Kate Wilson from Police Prize Out of Lives, just explaining what that question would have been.
Okay, so as I was saying, it was a question that I asked counsel to the inquiry to ask, but it wasn't. I'm not the only person who has asked this over the course of the last day or a couple of days. It was in relation to a witness statement that was only produced last Friday. My understanding is that his lawyers are objecting because he hasn't had a chance to view this material. I find that particularly offensive because I know that, you know, core participants from our side have been presented with documents that we hadn't seen.
And he wrote it.
And also, the stuff that we were asking to be put to him is stuff that he himself wrote and which has been online in the public domain for decades now. Literally 22 years this stuff has been on the internet, but his lawyers are claiming that the poor man hasn't had a chance to read it, so it wouldn't be fair to put it to him now. He was asked whether I can't remember the exact way that she phrased the question, but he was did he present as a single man who was looking for sex? He replied, not that I recall. And what we wanted was for the black and white evidence that he's very big on this. If you've got it written down, I won't deny it. And if this had been put to him, I am sure that he would not deny it, because 22 years ago in his Undercover Legend, Hastings was posting on Urban 75 as Boogie Boy, and he's made it clear in his evidence that his posts on Boogie Boy were absolutely essential to create and maintain his legend. He said that on a few occasions, defending things that he wrote. And he's also said that for him it was very, very difficult because he kind of gives the impression that he was fighting off the approaches from women. He cited one particularly graphic instance where he claims that somebody was offering, I think the term he used was fellatio. Fellatio whilst driving. Okay, I missed that part. I was too. Anyway, in August 2005, Boogie Boy was posting on Urban 75 on a thread which asks, guys, how many blowjobs have you had? Not enough, Boogie Boy, with a sad face. So on the 4th of October, he's posting on a thread titled, "Are you horny tonight?" Absolutely. Suddenly, even your label looks attractive. Ugh. And it goes on like this. It's quite gross. He at one point. Oh, and this is me waiting for the internet in here, which is really bad to load. I can't find the. Have you got?
While she's looking, I should say I did an analysis of his. I think it's 2,700 posts under the Boogie Boy persona. It's not the only persona, and 3% of them relate to his desperate search for sex or related issues. He has 2 more accounts that we know of post-deployment. One is called Fictionist, which ran from, I believe, 2008 to 2010. So it runs in parallel with his Boogie Boy persona. And the final one we know for sure is Beats and Pieces, which ran from 2016 to 2018 when he was banned from the forum. It's that he admits the fictionist account was his in his own witness statement. He hasn't mentioned the more recent one. And we think we found a couple of other possible candidates for further accounts. So he's quite prolific. There's over 10,000 posts since his deployment ended.
So yeah, here's the post that I was particularly looking for. This is at March 2006, which I think is quite shortly before he actually makes the approach to Maya and starts this relationship that we've heard so much deeply distressing evidence about. He is posting on the Lonely Hearts thread of Urban 75 in his undercover persona, and he posts, "Perhaps it's time for a more direct approach. I want some." 4 exclamation marks in brackets, despite the grief, Boogie Boy. So this is a guy who is quite clearly in black and white, and he has himself said that he will not dispute what is in black and white in March 2006, before he makes this extremely predatory approach on Maya, is actually posting online, portraying himself and his legend, his undercover persona, as someone who is completely desperate for sex.
And he's in a relationship with 3 kids.
Yes.
It's still going on at the time. They talk about, oh, we got supervision, they're all looked after. His wife's at home looking after his kids. He's posting online, looking to hook up.
Anyway, he was protected at the end of today's evidence from having these posts put to him in response to, because he says he can't recall now whether he was portraying himself as a single man who was looking for sex. But actually, in his earlier evidence, I mean, even that, even I can't recall whether I was portraying myself as a single man looking for sex, is a step down from how he answered these questions, I think, on the first day of evidence, when he was talking about, the steps that he took to make it clear that he wasn't looking for a relationship. Utter bullshit.
I mean, we've seen a lot of that today, where he has denied things, particularly, for example, he denied that he told Maya that he was willing to marry her, was going to get a house with her. And then it's shown to him in his messages that he was saying the same thing. And he said, well, I don't dispute if it's written down. And it's like, well, you did dispute it before you were shown this. Is it just the case that you're only admitting to things they're put to you? He claimed this was offensive, that, this was during a period where, I would say most of his evidence, he was incredibly, incredibly angry. Yeah.
I mean, he lost his shit.
The thing about, if it's not written down, I'm not going to admit to it, is really important with the Urban 75 stuff, because he was one post was put to him day before yesterday or yesterday. Yeah. It was that he had been posting prolifically about his damn CD swapping project after receiving, just like within minutes or half an hour or something of receiving a message from his so-called partner, deceived partner at the time, speaking about her death, flirting with suicidal thoughts.
She more than that. She said she's going to go and take an overdose of sleeping tablets. He replies to her saying, "It's your body. You've got agency." And then he goes, and then he does nothing else about it. He replies within half an hour, so he's aware of that message. Yet he doesn't go to her. He doesn't alert anybody else that she may be attempting to commit suicide. He carries on with his other fairly kind of minor activities he's doing online to try and get the contact details of other activists through this CD swapping scam he's got going on.
And when that was put to him, it was pretty much the only time that he's not been able to bat off the facts, because it's there right in front of him.
It should be said that he has said in his evidence that the Urban CD project was not about gathering intelligence, that he never passed those addresses on. So actually this wasn't his job. This was just him having fun doing music stuff online, which he did a lot of. I mean, a substantial amount of his 2,000 posts, which we saw when we went this afternoon through the event logs, they're called, that they started getting the SDS officers to do. He spent an inordinate amount of time pissing about online, talking about music, and getting paid hundreds of hours of overtime.
Yeah, he sat at home getting paid to talk shit. Maybe we'll come on to some of the shit he actually talked online consistently for years. And like, when you look at the timestamps, This isn't just while he's on the cover. He continues doing it. He's at the Muslim contact unit talking shit online.
And I think there's another issue here for STS management as well, because he said in evidence that he gave all the usernames to the SDS and they were aware of his postings. So why the hell weren't they looking into them and taking any notice of them? I think that, you know, that also raises another huge question for the SDS and their management.
I think he does. That was a classic example of someone he did all the way through the thing, was try and cast out, you know, so, well, it might not be me, but each time he says that, he's dumping somebody else into, he is not frightened to, you know, to drop everybody else in the shit to cover his own back. And for, you know, at the end, he's going, I felt so close to the SDS. I felt so close to the SDS. He just obviously thinks about himself.
Yeah, completely. Another issue with the timestamps, we got the whole sort of sequence of events earlier on about the way in which he was arrested after he had violently assaulted his the partner and his children. We saw the whole way in which, you know, he then had to go for disciplinary. And it seems that all the messages when he started getting back in contact with Maya were the same days. That in fact, he arranged to meet her on the day of his hearing at the magistrate's court. He doesn't actually turn up, but he sort of lines it up. You can even see, you know, that it was this time in the afternoon he had the meeting for his disciplinary, and then late into the evening he's sending sexually explicit messages to Maya.
It's worth pointing out for those of you who've been trying to watch on the YouTube feed that he managed to breach a restriction order 3 times in 1 hour.
Yeah, pretty calculated once every 10 minutes to just keep it offline.
He would say a whole bunch of stuff that was really uncomfortable and embarrassing for him, that was really damning and exposing like his assault on his family, on his wife, on his 2 arrests in 24 hours. And that whole disciplinary, being kicked out of the force for misconduct. Breached 3 times, which basically means I think maybe you got 15 minutes of that 1 hour if you were lucky.
If you were lucky in a few minute slots. What was happening in those inside those breaches was him giving this very personal and quite wounded account. I don't believe the guy has a genuine emotion, but he was certainly putting a lot of emotion into the account that he gave of his declining mental health after leaving the SDS. Now, I couldn't shake throughout all of this the exchange with Mitting yesterday, where he was essentially saying, and of course, you know, the inquiry knew this was coming. We had an idea that it was coming, but we didn't know exactly what was coming. But he was quite clearly yesterday blaming Maya or blaming the relationship with Maya, or blaming his guilt over what he had done in the relationship with Maya. However you choose to interpret it, he was blaming that for what happened later on with his family, and he was kind of foreshadowing what we were going to hear today. And honestly, I really don't see, when he actually came to describe it, what on earth relationship it had. What it actually came down to, and this several things about this guy have uncomfortably reminded me of Mark Kennedy, I have to say. But one of the things that happened was he left his cushy deal playing as a DJ in the anti-authoritarian movements, and went back into the police and could not deal with authority. He was an arrogant shit. He went back into the police, and suddenly there were people telling him what to do, and he lost his shit. And he pretty much said that,
and drank a lot,
and ended up with an alcohol problem.
And even the other police, when they came in to like go, what the hell's going on with this movement, pretty much called him out for this, and his response is character assassination. It was like, rather than actually say, we've just listened to you for 3 days, mate.
I have to confess, my reporting during a lot of this afternoon was very poor on Twitter. I mean, simply because it was just so shocking and it was so hard to keep up with. He was losing his temper and lashing out at the counsel to the inquiry, at the public gallery. I did type up what he was saying about his whole sort of explanation of how he came to to violently attack his partner and child. But when we got to the end of it, Sarah Hemingway says, and your former partner disputes that version of events and says that actually you did much worse things than that. And I was like, I'm not going to fucking share his fucking bullshit version of events. He can fuck off. So I didn't post all of that. I mean, suffice to say that he still disputes the events. He claims that he only pleaded guilty at the hearing because he didn't want to put his wife and children through the difficulty of the court case.
Yeah, it's always the woman.
Yeah.
The blaming someone else thing was very apparent in his recount of his explanation on the lead up to hitting his wife, which I think was actually another occasion. Is he has a nightmare that he's still undercover and punching in the face one of his targets, and he wakes up and finds that actually he's punching his wife, his partner of the time, which is just insane. Like, oh my God, like which particular activist is he dreaming about punching in the face for a start? And what's he going to dream about tonight?
And I think as well, I think that decision not to go through his bullshit was absolutely right. This is a narcissistic abuser, and everything about how he presented, everything that he said was just textbook narcissism. And he is actually a fundamentally scary person.
He does scare me.
He scares me. It scares me that he knows who I am, and I, obviously have not been through Mayo's been amazing. And to listen to that.
I had to say that Maya sat through so much of this absolutely calm. I had to leave the room. I actually had to leave the room. That has not happened to me before in these hearings. We've seen some fairly horrific stuff, but I actually couldn't listen anymore. I had to leave. She stuck with it. Incredible. And stared him down for the entire time.
Just before we went on air, I just spoke to her and she's remarkably calm.
Yeah. I think something that really demonstrates the narcissism was he went through this whole, as I say, very wounded, painful account of losing his family. And that's how he puts it. His life falls apart. He loses his family. And then we move on to what he did. And what he did was immediately get back in contact with Maya, start sending very sexually explicit emails to her. A lot of that was read out. And he got so angry that he actually lost his shit. And he started shouting at the barrister, saying that he wanted her to stop asking these questions, that this was a form of torture, and she was incredible. She was so calm. And then at one point he then went beyond shouting at counsel to the inquiry and started shouting at the public gallery, which was when I left, because Mitting intervened and said he would have to clear the public gallery, and I did not trust myself to stay quiet, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to get the whole public gallery evicted, I will just leave myself.
But the topic of that was like a whole set of explicit messages where he talks about ejaculating inside her and how much he wants to do that, and then he goes on to do it.
Yes.
And he is clearly really embarrassed, and also it's a criminal offence.
And he denies.
He denies
it.
But
and at one point, like, CTI was asking him these questions and he was avoiding answering the question. And she said, well, if you won't answer the question, then we are going to go to the messages where you talk about it. And he said, what is that? Some kind of bribe? And that's when he started shouting at everybody.
Oh no, I forgot what I was about to say.
Well, I was going to talk about vasectomies because as someone who's had one, I do that a lot, talk about vasectomies. And I notice that people who have vasectomies do talk about it, because like they've had to convince themselves it was a good idea, so now they want to like convince everyone else that it's a good idea. So I checked his posts on Urban 75. Let me think. There's about 13,000 posts and not one single mention of a vasectomy. I checked how many conversations there were, how many posts there are on Urban 75 about vasectomies. There are between 600 and 900 that I found. This thing about him saying if it's not in text, it didn't happen. It was raised the possibility that maybe he was lying about having a vasectomy, and there are no text messages from him saying he's had a vasectomy. So he's show us the text, or it didn't happen.
No, please don't.
Show us the scars.
But no, I remember what I was going to say as well. We're, you know, in terms of that section of the hearing when he kept saying, well, I accept what's in the emails, this is torture, stop, why are you going through them? And he said something like, I thought this was an undercover policing inquiry, you know, and trying to
he was trying to defend the fact that he was no longer an undercover
police
officer,
even though he was using that persona.
But he was a police officer, and he was using his undercover persona in order to go back to the people that he had targeted. It is plainly relevant to the impacts of undercover policing. On the vasectomy point, it was actually put to him that the reason why he has kept quiet about this issue, and he's basically only brought it up at the point where he has no longer been able to kind of like, he's asked what conversations were had about contraception. He didn't have any claims he didn't have any conversations about contraception. He says he didn't need to because he had a vasectomy, so it knew it wasn't an issue. Aside from the fact that that's not the only reason to talk with the person you're sleeping with about protected sex, which never came up. It was pointed out to him that he didn't say this in his written witness statement. He's never raised this with the inquiry before, and it's not that it didn't happen, but that actually he had the vasectomy specifically before becoming an SDS officer, and that is something that he has been avoiding, because it was suggested by counsel to the inquiry to him that he had the vasectomy. The timing of it is that he did it in order to go undercover, which is really, really grim. I mean, you know, we've heard the conversations about like use your own condoms, but that's taking it really one step too far.
No, it was so grim. And that was the other point I was going to make about him losing it with those questions around those emails. With everything else over the last 3 days, it's been constantly show me the email, show me the report, and demanding to see it and not accepting things and having to see it. And as soon as it was something that he was finding so uncomfortable, he just lost it. And then suddenly he didn't want to see the emails. He didn't want them read out. And it was so obvious why, because they are so horrific. But just having that kind of switch from what he was demanding, because he was constantly disrupting counsel to the inquiry and going, is there a report on that? Is there an email on that? Show me the text.
Hold on there. Let me take back. He was always stepping in to try and control the thing, take it away from Sarah, because he couldn't bear being questioned by a woman. It was so obvious.
And the demand to be shown the email, show the other side of the conversation, really kind of falls apart when he's actually presented with the prospect of having to be presented with the things that he has written for years. I mean, starts on as Boogie Boy in 2004, finishes in 2008 or 2009. That's a long time, a lot of evidence, and they fought hard not to hear it. Of course, it's all there on the internet. You just have to go and have a look.
I mean, we'll be putting links in the comments.
Absolutely. I mean, he he really did lose his shit when he was talking about the post deployment contact that he had with Maya, and I'm sure there was a whole bunch of stuff that I've certainly missed that came out through in that period, because he was not like controlling what he'd said. But previous to that, he'd been very, very controlled with what he was saying, though he was incredibly angry throughout. But I mean, before we got to that point, we were looking at the end of his deployment, how the unit ended up being shut down because of his actions, essentially, though he may have been the scapegoat for that in some senses. We saw the end of his deployment. He claimed that he was incredibly depressed. He talked about how he didn't want to go to Germany for the G8. We heard about the fact that something which he denied a lot, but the fact that one of the reasons why maybe he didn't want to go to the G8 and didn't want to be involved with a state of emergency collective was the fact that he was accused of of groping a woman at a party, somebody who was associated,
Sexually assaulting.
Yeah, sexually assaulting somebody at a party. Yeah, I mean, what do you make of all that?
I mean, we talked about this a little bit in the afternoon session. It was put to him at this point. There was a statement that Donal produced, which talks about this. This is something that people from State of Emergency told the Undercover Research Group many years ago, and it's been on the Powerbase website. But what wasn't there was this email that Rob wrote, sending his apologies for not attending the meeting where he was due to be confronted about this sexual assault. And counsel to the inquiry read it out, but to my mind, she read out the wrong bit, because I think she didn't understand the wording, which was quite activisty.
Does someone want to read out the right bit?
Yes. Do you want to?
So a couple of things to point here. This is to a mailing list which he denied in his statement exists, the State of Emergency Distribution email list on Rise Up, and it's from an email address in his name, cover name, RSP Harrison at Yahoo. So this is not one of the addresses that he gave to the inquiry, but it is one of the addresses that is entered into evidence with various emails that we have put in our statements. So subject, state of emergency apologies. Dear all, I will not be at the meeting tonight, and not because of perceived anger management problems or an overabundance of aggression or testosterone. I realised that I was due to talk about the issues that arise relating to counter-recruitment, but it just hasn't been possible to spend the time doing the work. And I do feel that the subject merits some effort, rather than relying on the hackneyed and cliche-bound arguments that sometimes appear within the political ether. I will be at the next meeting where hopefully we can discuss the G8. So I send my apologies and hope that the meeting is a good one.
So, unsurprisingly, counsel to the inquiry took that email and focused on the references to anger management, aggression, and testosterone. But actually, I think the key terms are his reference to counter-recruitment activities, which is counter-recruitment is putting people off. And frankly, going around groping people at parties will put people off joining the movement. And
part of it is like it did impact on the group,
and it really did impact on the group.
It didn't go without consequences, but this was never put to him that he was actively destroying state of emergency.
But I think it's really important to say that anybody who's been involved in activist movements, which is who he's talking to when he writes that email, would very clearly recognize phrases like counter-recruitment and doing the work and the importance of not falling into hackneyed, cliched political arguments as very much being him absolutely knowing that that meeting was supposed to be about the allegations of sexual assault that had been raised about him. And I think that, potentially for somebody who wasn't involved in one of those movements, it's not quite so obvious, but there is absolutely no question in my mind that is what that email refers to.
And that shows that he has a pattern. That is a habit. This wasn't just anything random or out of character. We've seen time and time again. Scratch the surface, and there's the true man.
There was also reference to a report, I believe, in which it describes the collapse of state of emergency a group as being down to interpersonal conflict.
Yes, and when that was brought up, he was asked whether any part of his role was to dissolve groups, to destabilize them,
or whether he had any role in those
right.
interpersonal conflicts.
And he said that if he would have been asked to sow the seeds of disarray within a group to make it fall apart, he would have done that. Which, I mean, is the
and he wasn't pressed on whether he was asked to do that to state of emergency.
And in my third statement of this week, or was it fourth? I can't remember. Anyway, I happened to manage to connect with my ex-partner from that period of time and ask her her memories of Rob Harrison, and she said that what she remembers is him constantly trying to get her to dump me, which, you know,
he wasn't wrong about everything.
But
apparently Ben is no good.
So, you know, there's the question there. Is that him trying to be disruptive, to break things up, or is that him trying to get into her knickers? So amongst the, you know, myriad of disgusting posts on Urban 75 from him, I picked out two where he refers to meeting someone who he fancies and being very disappointed to learn that they already have a partner. I hate to tell you this, guy. If a girl tells you she's already got a boyfriend, she's not interested.
We've had a lot of comments. I'm just going to go through some of them. Given, I mean, I would say the vast majority are just saying that the sound's not on. I mean, it is on now, but okay, yeah. What's this one here? As ever, actually, maybe it seemed like the world was a little less terrible a place, and I couldn't hear any more about him. Yeah, fair enough. Another one here. The man pushes the phenomenon of skin crawling to logical and practical limits. I am astonished by the disgusting self-serving evidence. Another one. From what I saw, you don't need to apologize for struggling to keep up with the hearing. No, fair enough. It was particularly horrible. Judge Mitting should have held HN 18 Rob Harrison in contempt. The despicable child-beating, wife-beater dismissed for gross misconduct, lying through his teeth. Absolutely. Another one. Snarling at the female counsel, shouting aggressively at the gallery, staring hatefully at his victims, including Maya, his gross, pathetic excuse for a human being. And a dangerous individual to this day. The accusation of not going through stuff as a bribe was astonishing. I feel the hearing should have continued tomorrow. Kudos to Sarah Hemingway. Rob Hastings lost it. Thanks to all of you for the courage, love and solidarity. Thanks. From Dave Smith, loving Tom being Parkinson's chat show style. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Well done to all of you who have kept the digital archive, your heroes. Thank you. Not surprising that they're like this, but will never not be shocking. Absolutely, yes. Not surprising, but will never not be shocking. That's very, very true. It has been a particularly shocking afternoon. A few of the lawyers remarked to me that they'd never seen scenes like it. High drama, high court drama.
The tension in the room was like it was like the Hackney Tower of you could cut it with a knife. It's like never have I been in a space where that felt so true.
Yeah, and absolute props to Sarah Hemingway for the professionalism and the calm with which she dealt with that, because frankly she has had a nasty misogynist abuser focusing most of his rage on her for 3 days straight, and she's
been fantastic, and I really hope that she's actually getting support from the inquiry team for having to go through that as well, because what she did was phenomenal, and full solidarity to her for how she handled it. But I also hope that, you know, trauma-informed approach that the inquiry is supposed to have, it extends to her as well, and what she's had to go through for the last 3 days, because it
really was appalling and unpleasant.
Today is 187 of the undercover policing inquiry.
I can't believe you can like keep up with the number of days.
That's 187 on Undercover Cop. If anybody gets that reference, it's the end of phase 3 of phase two of tranche 3 of the undercover policing inquiry. That is the last of the SDS field officers that will be giving evidence to the inquiry, which I can't believe. I mean, it's been such a long time to get to this point, but it feels like it's been a massive rush as well. I mean, it has been a massive rush. I feel that there's so many things that have been left out in the field. And I would really just encourage people that I don't think any of us who are working on this stuff think that the inquiry is an end to itself in any way, and none of the work that we're doing is going to end as the inquiry ends. The research will continue. The exposing of what the undercover officers did will continue. But there's so many things that we wish could have been brought up during this phase.
Oh, no, absolutely. But also one of the things I'd like to say to people, like especially people who weren't around at the time or who think this is historic, like especially with this era, we're seeing so much stuff that is so similar to how we're policed today. We're seeing the same patterns. And anyone who is dealing with the repression on our streets today, it is really worth following this inquiry, following what's happened and getting that understanding of policing and how they operate, because it is all so relevant to where we are today.
And not just the policing. I mean, there've been a few moments where they were talking about the groups being opposing the bombing of Lebanon and supporting the Palestinian people. It was just like, Jesus, you wouldn't believe this was 20 years ago, what we're talking about.
Yeah, and just a shout out to Netpol as one of the groups that are currently working on this. I've got loads of resources online about repression and how to counter it. They just did their state of protest in 2025. So people are, we look at the historical stuff, but people are looking at it in here and now. And yeah, check out netpol.org.
And to bring some of the historical stuff into the now, if you were involved in state of emergency, we're not done with Hastings yet. So please get in touch. We want to get people together from that group to put a statement together to rebut some of the stuff you said and to get into evidence your experiences of those final days. So get in touch with URG.
We will be doing a recap of the week. We've been doing those on a Sunday, but I fancy seeing we've got to the end of this phase. We might take a couple more days and do it one day next week. Just a couple more comments. One from Dave Smith saying that he's looking forward to some of the clips of today's evidence. Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be some right crackers in there. We generally play those clips during that weekly recap. Another one saying 10 years to get to this point, but like a sprint at the end. It's actually been 11 years to get to this point, Dave, believe it or not. Underestimating. But it feels like 12. Yeah, absolutely. Another one. Thanks, Tom and everyone. Hope you all to get some downtime before the managers come in. Solidarity with you all. And then from David, well said, everyone of you for doing this feedback reportage. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, we will be back on June the 15th when the managers for this period of the SDS will be questioned. There's 25 of them, I think, are due.
They're planning to give 25 over 6 weeks. Some will be fairly short, but it's going to be... They're fighting among themselves. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. I mean, what won't be fun and we won't be sure is the first witness, which appears to be Bob Lambert, who will be returning to the inquiry to bore us all to death with this appalling way of fucking talking. I am not looking forward to that. I think we go straight in with a full week of Lambert at the beginning.
That guy is a university lecturer. I mean, the attrition rate on his courses. Or... maybe he's just playing a role.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe if there's any students of Bob Lambert out there, they'd like to come and tell us how he is as a lecturer so we can have the comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, as we always say, if you're ever involved in any of these things, you've got any questions you want to ask, I mean, please get in touch with the Undercover Research Group, Campaign Opposing Police Surveillance. If you're affected in that way, contact Police Spies Out of Lives. I'll be putting up a lot more episodes of the Spy Cops Info podcast over the next few weeks. Those weekly reports, I'm sort of editing them down, releasing them. I was doing that in a timely manner, but I'm afraid the reality of reporting on the inquiry just makes that impossible. If anybody wants to support this work, you can buy me a coffee. It's ko-fi.com/Tom B. Fowler. Please consider supporting any of the other groups as well.
On that point, one of the things that Tom and I were discussing this morning was the fact that it has been so much harder doing the reporting and doing the coverage of the stuff that actually impacts on us. And if you've noticed that the video editing has dropped off and the editing stuff into podcasts has dropped off, it's because we're suddenly having to be drafting Rule 10 questions and writing statements and responding to stuff that has come out at the last minute, and dealing with the impact. But it's going to be so much worse for tranche 4
Yeah.
because all of us sitting here are, you know, fully affected by the stuff that happens in tranche 4. And so if anybody wants to help with the reporting of this, when it comes to tranche 4, we're going to need more people because, like, yeah, we've been absolutely stretched to the limit this round.
That's exactly what I took the microphone to say. So get in touch, especially if you're not involved in tranche 4.
Yeah, I mean,
and then you can like to be able to knock out video clips during the day, for example, instead of any of us doing it. That would be great, and it's something you can do from home, and we can talk you through how you can get access, do the technical bits of that. There's loads of ways you could get involved in the campaign of closing police surveillance, supporting those who have been affected, and to, you know, keep on hitting them with stuff.
Also, if you don't appreciate the way that we do these things, I mean, there is nothing stopping you doing your own sort of coverage of the inquiry. We have no special dispensation. There is no, I mean, I've kind of forced a little bit of special dispensation over the time that I've been doing it because I got in trouble so often.
We literally are sitting in Tom's corner here.
Yeah. I mean, but I've just fought for that. I mean, there's no, like, you know, there's no special status really. I mean, anybody can, you know, do analysis, do coverage of the hearings. You can do that remotely because they're broadcast. It's a lot easier if you come in person. You don't have to engage with it the same that we do. I mean, like, I've tried to include as many different people as possible in this process. I'm very aware that I've got a huge anarchist bias, though I have had all sorts of like Trotskyites and different communists on these things. You know, I mean, there's all sorts of different tendencies, and I think I'm a lot less sectarian than I used to be. But I mean, generally, I mean, a lot of this stuff's come from an anarchist perspective. I mean, all of us here are anarchists, and we were spied on because we were anarchists, and we fought back because we're anarchists. But you know, you are welcome to do your own thing if you don't want to work with us with it. But there's plenty of opportunity to like do more coverage of these hearings. And just echo what Kate just said, you know, tranche 4 is going to be incredibly difficult. I'm not sure how I'm going to cover things. I know that some of us are going to be witnesses during that period. I'm not sure how I'm going to report on myself as a witness. That's going to be weird. I mean, obviously I'm not going to, but how on earth? I don't know. And I mean, also just dealing with the fallout of it and the traumatic nature of what the details of it are, which I never talk about. That will be very, very difficult. So please get involved.
Yeah, but just also kind of, we have created an incredible cross-community coalition. You know, so, yes,
Tom is more sectarian than most of us, it must be said.
I'm not being sectarian anymore.
You know, it's a broad church because we have one enemy, and the enemy is Metropolitan Police, or all the police will come to be. Yeah, we do work well, and we're open to talking to everybody.
Please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Just one more comment, I think, there at the end. Doing the Lambeth Walk. It would be painful listening to him. Yeah. Fucking the Lambeth Walk, Jesus. Yeah, it will be very, very unpleasant listening to him. Does anybody else have anything else to add, or can we bring a curtain down on this? Pub. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again in June. Please get in touch if you want to do anything. I think we've said all that. It's been real.